Good evening. I'm Gracelyn Guyol, and I'm delighted that you've tuned in to Inspiring Local Nonprofits. Tonight's guest is Heather Milardo, the Executive Director of Avalonia Land Conservancy. What drew you, Heather, into conservation work?
It's something that growing up, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. I was fairly, ignorant of the need for conservation work. We're surrounded out there by state and national forests, so it wasn't something I was really aware of growing up. But moving around a bit after college, realized that really wasn't the norm everywhere. So we moved after my son was born, we moved to Connecticut, and I realized I really wanted him to have the same experiences that I had growing up, that he had that opportunity to spend time outside, to be hiking and camping and all of those things that were so formative to me growing up. So that was really when I first started to really become aware of what a great need there was for conservation. Avalonia specifically really drew me because as a large but still growing organization, they had a really large need for somebody who had nonprofit experience, not necessarily entirely environmental. You know, we have amazing volunteers who have the skills and the experience, but they needed somebody who had nonprofit skills and experience. And that was something that I really felt that I could contribute to the organization itself, to really help it grow and help it see that potential and realize that potential that it had.
Avalonia Land Conservancy is over 45 years old, and it holds more than 3,400 acres preserved in natural open space.
Yes.
How was it founded, and when?
There were, in 1968, we're getting pretty close to our 50th anniversary, which is exciting in and of itself. But we were founded in 1968 by 4 individuals who really saw a need for conservation within southeastern Connecticut. So they started the Mashantucket Land Trust in 1968, spring, and went through all of the work that it took to incorporate and get the bylaws and everything ready. And then later in 68, they elected their first board of directors, and in 69, we accepted our first 2 properties, which were both in Stonington. It was Ram Point and Pafford Marsh.
Okay. How do lands become managed and protected by Avalonia? Because you're unique in one of those areas.
Yes.
Okay.
It has changed over the years. You know, in 68 when we were founded, there was just this feeling of we need to protect as much as we can. If somebody had land that they wanted to donate, we accepted it because that was what we were there for. We wanted to take any open space as possible and really grow and preserve what was the natural landscape and the natural environment of southeastern Connecticut. As we've grown, the focus has really become more on strategic conservation and making sure that we're looking at the properties that are environmentally significant, in that they have a diverse habitat on them, or possibly threatened species that we really need to work hard to protect. Because what I think a lot of people don't realize is that all of those properties, we're working to preserve them in their natural state. But that doesn't mean that we accept them and we just leave them alone. There's a lot of stewardship and maintenance that goes on with all of those properties. We have almost 90 volunteers who are putting in thousands of work hours every year, just making sure that the invasives are maintained and controlled. That
the invasive species.
The invasive species, yes. Like the Phragmites and stuff that you'll see on marsh areas, different trees, different plants, things like that
could
really
will
take over
right.
an area, yes.
And are not native to this area.
They're not. So it's a lot of work. They're invasive for a reason.
Right.
So it takes them a lot of time, and unfortunately it's an expensive endeavor to really keep those properties maintained as they should be. So it's not necessarily as they are, but it's what their natural state should be for environmental reasons to keep
And that
them
is why
healthy.
you had to become more strategic in your
Yes.
choices.
Yes,
Is
we-
because of the expense and the time
Correct.
in maintaining. So that is that one of the things that makes Avalonia unique?
I think it is one of the things that really makes us unique. Another part is that we are regional, which is something, there's 137 land trusts in Connecticut itself. And of those 137, probably a handful are regional, Avalonia being one of them.
Okay.
A lot are working just within their local communities and really doing amazing work in their communities. We have the opportunity to really work in an entire
Region.
entire quarter of our state we're trying to maintain. But that means that we have marshland, we have meadows, we have forests, we have coastline. So it's really a large wealth of information that we have in our volunteers and in our organization to make sure that all of those areas are maintained, and we have people who are knowledgeable about all of those different areas. So that's one thing. And we have over 200 acres of coastline, which is more than,
That's a lot.
yes, which is more than any other land trust in the state. And it's a lot. When you think of how small our state is, that's a lot of coastal area. Part of that is due to the fact we have two islands. We have Sandy Point Island, which is half in Rhode Island, half in Connecticut. And then we also have South Dumpling Island, which is part of New York.
Right. Okay.
So we do, obviously that adds to a lot of the coastal acreage that we hold.
Let's talk about a few specific projects
Absolutely.
that you have underway. You've been working to create and protect a New England cottontail habitat.
Yes.
And how are the bunnies doing?
We hope they're doing great. It's hard to say right now because New England cottontails and Eastern cottontails look almost identical. So visually, you can't really tell them apart. So what we have to do is there have to be very specific circumstances where you go out and you collect bunny droppings.
Okay.
And you have to do DNA testing on it to find out whether they're New England or Eastern. And it has to be, after a snowfall, and it has to be, all of these kind of within these parameters that you have to collect these samples to do the testing.
So that you have a consistent testing from time to time, is that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But it also takes years from when the habitat is developed to when you'll actually see.
Data.
Right, and you'll
Yes.
see the bunnies come in. Because, we're not sending out invitations saying, New England bunnies, please come here, we have this new hotel for you. We have to wait and allow them to find it on their own. And what's the reason this specific property was chosen, the Peck Callahan
Okay.
Preserve
Have we
in-
got a photograph of that, I think? Has it been up? The Peck Callahan Preserve? There it is.
There it is. That's what it
Okay.
looks like now. So Fish and Wildlife approached us and said, we have this project. We want you to be a part of it. We think you have properties that really could benefit this threatened species. So this property, the Peck and Callahan Preserves, the location was right, meaning that it was right along a power line, because that's how the New England cottontails travel. Because large trees don't grow up, it's all brush.
It's been
So
kept
that's-
low habitat,
exactly.
and it looks fairly scruffy.
It does.
At the low level.
Right, which is ideal for them because it offers the protection that they need and
The hiding places.
right, the hiding places, the nutrients, all of that type of thing that's essential for them. So it had to be right on one of the bunny highways, and we had these properties, but like a lot of property in New England, it was mature growth, which is part of the reason that the species was becoming threatened to begin with, because they require a young growth forest because of all of the shrub and the underlay.
Right.
Whereas once it's a mature growth, you don't have that. You just have this
Everything's
large
tall,
canopy.
and
Everything
there's
is
nothing
tall.
low to hide in.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So what they did, it was actually several years that this process was happening. So they cut a lot of the trees down and created slash, which is the fallen branches and logs and things like that. And then we just kind of walk away and you let it go. And over time, all of the other shrubs will grow up underneath. and that the slash that's left provides a barrier so that the deer can't get in and disturb the habitat.
Right.
Unfortunately, it keeps us out a little bit also,
Yes,
which is a
it
good
looked
thing.
like it was pretty hard to walk
It
through.
is, which also makes it hard to collect the data too, because trying to climb through all of that to find the
scat.
right.
The
Could you
droppings.
imagine walking through that to try to find it?
Bunny droppings? The snow would help.
Yes, the snow helps a little.
Okay.
But regardless of whether we see the bunnies there or not, it's already been a success. What they're finding is there are almost 50 different species that use shrubland like that use thicket as a habitat. We're already seeing those. We have the monarch butterflies. We have all of the different bird species that
Need
require
cover.
that kind of habitat
Right.
to live in
ground,
and succeed
ground
in.
birds
Right.
that have ground nesting.
And we're already seeing them out there. So it's already been a success. We just are waiting for the bunnies to find their way to us.
And how many years of data do you have? Do you know how long has this been going on?
The project was more or less completed in 2013.
Okay.
Knowing that it takes a couple of years for the cottontails to find their way there, we've just started going out in the past year to really start to look.
Okay,
and
so
see.
Good things are happening, but
know good things are happening.
Are just beginning to get the years of data that
Exactly.
you need to
Exactly.
show the full benefits.
Correct.
Okay. National Audubon Society has granted Avalonia funding to establish a purple martin population
Yes.
on Knox.
Yes.
Where is Knox, and have the birds settled in yet?
They have, excuse me, Knox is right out Route 1 between Mystic and Stonington off of Wilcox Road.
Okay, so here's a picture of that preserve.
Yes.
Explain what's going on there.
Sure. These are the two colonies that we have. Each one has about 10 to 20 gourds on it, and the gourds are what the martins will use.
Prefer as housing.
Unfortunately, they don't take care of their own.
They have to be cleaned out.
They have to be cleaned out. So our volunteers go in early spring. The volunteers go in and they clean out all of the gourds, put them back up, chase out the invasive swallows that have set
Right.
up nests there, and get them all cleaned out and get the nests all set back up so that the purple martins can come back again. They have arrived, so they are singing right now and trying to woo their mates. But they are there, their nests are ready, and right now we're just waiting for them to set up. We fledge about 50 birds a year.
And why are
will be
they
hatched
so
there.
desirable? Purple martins. Do they insect eaters, mosquito eaters?
They are. They are.
Okay.
They're also, because of what's required for them to have a habitat, because it requires such hands-on from people, they're becoming less and less populous. It's just
Okay.
not something
so they're
that
diminishing in
they are
population.
diminishing.
So this is an attempt to help them
Yes.
survive
Yes.
in today's world.
Yes, because everything that we're being told, it's a lot easier to save a species than it is to protect it and bring it back.
Yes.
So this is just another way that we are trying to really support these different species that otherwise would become threatened or endangered.
Okay. Explain the importance of Dodge, Paddock, and Beal Preserve Project, which is, I think, your partnership with the Connecticut Department of Energy and
Yes.
Environmental Protection.
Yes.
And what's expected to happen this year?
It's a big project. That has actually been something that we've been working on since we acquired it in 1980. It's a gorgeous property, but also very, very challenging because you can see you have the seawall and the way it juts out, and it's lowland. So now what we have is the groundwater levels are rising.
Yes.
So you're starting to have flooding. Once you have flooding and standing water, then you get the invasive species like Phragmites and such, which everywhere you see that's brown, that's where we've really kind of
Okay.
tried
And
to
this is in the
mitigate
town,
there.
in the village of Stonington?
Yes, down in the
Correct.
borough.
Okay. So I recognize some of the properties, the edges of the properties
Yes.
there. That
Yes.
So it's off of which street? It's not off of Water. It's off Main Street.
Down toward the end, though, yes.
Yes. Okay. So
So drainage has always been a problem there, and that's where DEP got really involved and tried to help figure out a way that we could create better drainage on this property so that you didn't have all of that, the overgrowth and the flooding and the mosquito breeding and all of these things that obviously nobody wants. So they tried a couple different things. They found a clamshell drain that would let water out but not in, which that was doing okay. It was, I think, their second attempt at drainage until Sandy hit. And that's when we really had a lot more problems, because with the storm surge, what it did is it completely blocked and broke that clamshell.
it took
drain.
everything away that you'd put in place, correct?
It brought everything up and filled it.
Okay.
So it brought in sand and debris and everything, and it filled and blocked that drain.
Okay.
It broke the seawall. So we were getting stuff from that. And the way it's situated, you have, this corner where the seawall is and the sound meet, but then it's also coming up from around the back. So it's just surging into this area.
Okay.
So what we've finally been able to do with the help of the Long Island Sound Futures Fund, which the aquarium applied for on our behalf, and they've been doing a lot of work down there. DEP, a lot of other agencies, and really the neighbors in the community down in the borough, which have been so incredibly supportive to try to make sure that we can get this back to a healthy environment. So basically a ditch has been dug, because if fresh water and salt water are coming in, as long as it's going back out, that back and forth is what's going to...
It's positive.
It is positive, because that's what washes out the invasives that are going to grow there, and it keeps it healthy.
So the flow is really important.
The flow is very important. But it's a big ditch. We have to have volunteers that are down there on a regular basis cleaning out the eelweed and all of that, the eelgrass that's going to block it up. But what we're finding is, with this new ditch and with all of the work that's going on there, that we're seeing a lot of different marsh fish, which is bringing in the birds, and they're eating the mosquitoes. So it really is becoming a much healthier environment. We're trying to plant more native species, which will help keep invasives out. But it's really a beautiful property. It was the site of Connecticut's first pottery factory.
Oh, really?
It is, so there's a history there that we want to preserve as well.
So you find shards in the digging.
We have found a lot of shards down there. So historically, it's very significant. It was the site of a lot of Stonington's early history took place right there.
My memory says that you can walk on this property.
You can, yes.
So it's open to the public.
It is open to the public. Aside from our conservation easements that are still public property and owned by the property owners, all of our preserves are public property. Some have, about 20 of them have trails out of the 85.
And are these there maps of the trails or
there
lists
are
of the
maps.
property on your website?
Yes.
Okay.
We just last summer completely revamped the website. We had an amazing volunteer come in and offer his services. He said, I love your property. I was out on Knox, but your website is terrible.
And that was wonderful to have him do
Let
that.
me fix it for you. And we said, yes, please do. So he worked with our communications committee and put together what we feel is a really robust website now that has all of our trail maps. It has the directions in the GIS. It has property histories. It has archives.
That's great.
It really is. So anything anybody wants to know about any of our properties is now available on our website.
They can check on the bunnies.
They can check on the bunnies.
I love that.
I know. We have, we have a blog that we put out every Monday that will highlight different areas. And a lot of times, especially with Dodge, there's a lot that is the updates on what's happening there. A lot of it is what's happening with the bunnies.
Okay.
So it's a good information point for people.
Explain Avalonia's new endowment and how it fits into
Yes.
your larger planned giving program, because all of this depends on support from the communities in which the properties are located.
It really does. We are completely dependent on the support of foundations and individual donors. So what we've done is to try to really create a steady annual income stream and to really promote long-term sustainability. We have created an endowment, and we've done that through the Connecticut Foundation of Eastern Connecticut, or Community Foundation of Eastern Connecticut. And what it is they take a sum of money, and it's held, the principal of that money is held
In trust, and
in
you
trust.
throw us off.
You don't, right. It's restricted, you don't touch it.
Right.
And then you work off of the
Proceeds.
interest every year.
Yeah.
So we will receive annual income forever because of this. So it came about, we had a very generous couple, a generous lady who lived in North Stonington, Adele Arisman. While she and her husband were still alive, they had donated a large piece of property, Arisman Woodlands, which is actually now part of a 220-acre greenway in North Stonington, which is amazing. It's connected by our Babcock Ridge property, which we just finished the purchase of last year. But she left us a very generous bequest. So we have taken that and we have put some of it toward defense funds, some of it towards stewardship, and then a chunk of it toward this endowment to make sure that in the future we have that sustainable income.
Your resources are growing
They
for
are
the future,
growing, yes.
and will keep up with inflation.
Yes.
Okay, what's involved in getting nationally accredited through the Land Trust Alliance?
A lot of hard work. The Land Trust Alliance is a national organization that works to make sure that the land trusts that apply for accreditation are maintaining the standards and practices that they've set up as good standards and good practices for your policies and procedures, for your record keeping and board evaluation, board orientation, your volunteer programs, all of those things that they want to make sure are really in good order, that your financials, that you're doing the audits that you need to do, that you're doing the checks and balances that really have to be in place to make sure that your organization is as strong as it can possibly be, that this capacity is there.
And meeting high standards.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So we felt that this is something that we adopted their standards and practices many years ago. But that it was time that we felt we were ready to put all of this in place and start to go forward and get that accreditation. So you
have the accreditation now?
We do not.
We've applied
for it. The application went in April. It's a fairly long process. So now that the application is in, it will be probably another year and a half of back and forth with the commissioners on, here are some gaps that we found in whatever it is.
Yeah, a certain area.
In this area, here's what you can do to fix it.
Okay.
It's making sure that you have management plans for all of your properties. With 85 properties, that's a lot.
It is.
So it has been a very long process, but we have very hardworking, dedicated volunteers who I'm pretty sure were sleeping at our office for the last couple of weeks. Every time I walked in the door, there they were. But the application's complete, so now we're on to the next phase of it.
That's congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really
Thank you.
a wonderful endeavor, and I'm sure it will pay back for you, for the organization. Describe your expanded outreach efforts, including the Hike and Seek program for kids and families. I think that would interest a lot of our viewers.
I hope so. We are really trying to do a lot more with outreach, and part of that is at the suggestion of one of our volunteers she really spearheaded this, Beth Sullivan, and she and our web designer, Kent, worked together, and they have put this whole program together to really encourage kids to get out on the preserves, to explore and see all of these different beautiful things there are to see. but also keeping in mind that kids like technology. So they can go, they use their iPads or their phones or, whatever it is. They can download all of the clues off of the website. They go out, they find these things, and then they take pictures and they upload it back. So we're really trying to combine what it's going to take to get kids to go out and really appreciate what is in their backyard
in nature, right?
I did a program for my son's school recently, and I heard kids say, well, but I'm afraid to go outside. I'm afraid to go in the woods. And it's heartbreaking.
They've never done it.
They've never done it.
So it's unknown.
And there's so much amazing, beautiful property in Connecticut that these kids can get out on. So we just have to, I guess, provide the impetus to get out there.
The motivation.
Right.
And the structure to help them go where it's supervised and they don't have to feel alone and they're doing it with other kids. So it's one of those experiences that they'll probably remember for quite a while and seek out again.
Yes.
How can viewers become Avalonia members, volunteers, or donors and support what you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. We, as I mentioned, we have 90 some volunteers. A lot of them have come to us through our website. Some have come to us from people they know. It's more than just blazing trails. We have, as I mentioned, we have graphic design volunteers, we have administrative volunteers, we have a lot of environmental volunteers who want to get out and do studies on the preserves. All of this information is on our website,
which is up on the screen.
On the website. There is information on how to make donations, whether it's gift donations, land donations, and then we also, on this Friday the 27th, we will have our annual general member meeting, which is open to the public, and we encourage everybody to come out, learn more about what we're doing, what our accomplishments have been from the past year, and what we're looking at going forward.
So that's the 27th of May,
yes,
which is a Friday, and what time?
It's at 6 o'clock at the La Grua Center in downtown Stonington, down in the borough.
In the borough, okay. And is there anything else? We have about another minute or two left. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell viewers about activities this year or encourage them to do? I think parents and their kids might really love this hide and seek. Is that continuing through this summer?
It will. We're actually getting ready to launch it. It has not launched yet.
Oh, okay.
So we are getting ready to launch it this summer. We're also going to be doing a series of summer hikes. We have Trails Day coming up. We have 3 different hikes scheduled for Trails Day.
And do you know the dates, or is that
it's
on your...
Saturday and Sunday. I think it's the 5th and the 6th of June.
Okay.
So I would really encourage people to spend some time on our website, spend some time on our Facebook page, and just keep an eye out. We're always doing guided hikes and different ways to get people out and encourage people to explore all of this that's right in their backyard.
Well, thank you very much, Heather, for all that you and Avalonia Land Conservancy are doing and all the volunteers are working. It's really great to get an update on all of this. And I appreciate all that the organization has done in the past, too. It has a long history of achievement.
It does. Thank you so much for giving us the chance to come on and talk about it.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I hope you'll tune in again next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock for another, to hear more about another inspiring local nonprofit. Good night.